Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rachel Waugh from Oakdene, Hollins, and in this presentation I'm going to talk a bit about the journey we have gone on in remanufacturing and what we are currently doing and seeing in this space. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Oakdene Hollins, we are a circular economy focused consultancy with offices in Aylesbury in Buckinghamshire and also in Brussels. We started in 1994 with a focus on waste management and recycling, and over the years have expanded our expertise to broader areas of sustainability. From early on, remanufacturing and reuse were key areas of interest we developed, and we now see our work as very much in line with the circular economy narrative. So the first major publication on remanufacturing we did was probably back in 2004 when we did a UK remanufacturing market study. A few years later, in 2006, with funding from DEFRA, we established the Centre for Remanufacturing and Reuse, or the CRR, which aimed to promote and support businesses involved in remanufacturing and reuse through funding projects, commissioning research and disseminating information. After the DEFRA funding stopped, we decided to continue the CRR ourselves and carried on with our programme of remanufacturing research and promotion. So for example, in 2009, we updated the previous UK market survey. The CRR is actually how I first was made aware of Oakdene Hollins, as the CRR was a member of the Industrial Consortium for the WellMet 2050 project, which was the project I was involved with through my PhD. So I joined Oakdene Hollins in 2013, and since then I have been very involved in remanufacturing activities and have taken part in remanufacturing projects in Scotland, the EU, Canada and Malaysia, as well as product-specific projects like remanufacturing of transformers and switchgear equipment, and more policy-focused projects, for example, looking at the impact of implementing the WEEE directive on printer cartridge remanufacture. So not long after joining the company, I was asked to help put together a proposal for a Horizon 2020 project on remanufacturing, which at the time, the term remanufacturing wasn't that widely used in the European Commission. However, with a consortium of 8 partners, including the University of Strathclyde, we were successful in our bid and the European Remanufacturing Network project was created. So we had observed that remanufacturing was an undervalued part of the industrial landscape and an under-recognised sustainable industry. There was some activity to promote remanufacturing, but it was generally undertaken at a sectoral level and then only for some product sectors. By contrast, in the recycling industry, the recycling industry had cross-sectoral activity and facilitation of knowledge transfer and promoting the industry. Also, the US and China had at this point already developed a common vision and strategy for remanufacturing within their industrial landscapes. So we saw a real risk that European remanufacturing could lose competitiveness and that there was a real need for a European level solution to encourage remanufacturing. So the ERM project ran for 2 years and its aims were to encourage new businesses to take up remanufacturing, to help existing remanufacturers improve their competitiveness and their operations, and to create greater awareness of remanufacturing in the public and also for policymakers to help increase demand and address some of the barriers. And the aims of the project were achieved through conducting the first European remanufacturing market study and producing scenarios of the future potential for the industry, disseminating best practice in remanufacturing business models, processes and design through case studies, through providing industry with remanufacturing knowledge, tools and partnerships using workshops, an online network and online course material, and undertaking an information campaign to raise the profile of the European remanufacturing industry. So the ERN market study found that the EU market in 2015 had a value of about 30 billion euro, with aerospace, automotive, heavy duty and off-road equipment making up the lion's share. In terms of the major actors in Europe, there was Germany at the top, followed by the UK, France, Italy and Spain. One aspect of the ERN project that I think contributed to its appeal during the bidding phase was the intention to establish a European Remanufacturing Council to act as an enduring legacy for the project and to continue the work started. So in 2017, when the ERN project finished, the Conseil Européen de Remanufacture, or CER, was established. So the CER is an industry association representing remanufacturers of all sizes, types and sectors, with the ambition to triple the value of the industry to 100 billion by 2030. The work of the council is led by David Fitzsimons, who is the director of Oakdene Hollins and who is currently based in Brussels. The council is involved in lobbying policymakers to support remanufacturing, for example, through providing inputs on revisions to the waste shipment regulations and the EU Blue Guide, as well as participating in projects like the World Economic Forum's Council for Advanced Manufacturing and Production, which now has an advanced remanufacturing pillar as one of the work packages. But also involved in standards development, and most recently we have been selected as one of 24 organisations to sit on the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, which is a network of networks to push the circular economy agenda. So I called this presentation Riding the Remanufacturing Wave, and this is because we have seen, probably over the last 5 years, a shift in thinking and the development of new paradigms like the circular economy that have helped raise the profile of remanufacturing. In the first instance, when people come across remanufacturing, they are often confused with terms like recycling. This is perhaps unsurprising, as certainly in the UK and in Europe, recycling and waste recovery has received the majority of attention and policy and investment to date. These strategies have focused on recirculation of materials, and the measurement of interest is mass. So how many kilograms or tons of material is recovered and reprocessed. However, in the last few years, there has been a move away from this material-focused approach towards consideration of whole products through themes such as life extension, durability, and eco-design. Along with this shift to a more product-centric approach, there has been increased interest in exploring metrics that are based on impact or value rather than mass. Back in 2018, the UN International Resources Panel produced a report on value retention processes, which was led by the remanufacturing expert, Professor Nabil Nazir in the US. And this report introduced a new framework to distinguish between remanufacturing and other categories of value retention activity through the lens of life extension. And we've found that this framework has been a really good communication tool for explaining remanufacturing and its distinctions from other processes. So the first thing to note in this framework is that it distinguishes between when a product reaches its end of life, so it can't fulfill its technical function anymore, and when a product reaches its end of use, where the product still functions or has the potential to function, but the current owner no longer wants it or requires it. On the bottom axis, we have time, starting from when the product is manufactured, and the vertical dashed line represents the expected end of life or design life. From the manufacturer's perspective, after a product is manufactured, those who are operating a traditional take, make, sell business model would expect the product to reach its end of use at the same time it reaches its end of life. Then we have remanufacturing, which looks very different. We see here that at the expected end of life, the remanufacturing process prevents the product from reaching its end of life, and it's able to extend the life by a full lifetime. And additionally, this remanufacturing cycle may take place multiple times before the product reaches its final end of life. The next value retention process to contrast is comprehensive refurbishment. As for remanufacturing, this takes place at the expected end of life. However, it differs from remanufacturing in two key points. Firstly, it does not extend the product's life by a full lifetime, and typically it does not support multiple refurbishment cycles. Next, we have reuse. And a key difference here is that when a product reaches its end of use, it has not reached its end of life. So a good example for this is furniture. So a consumer may decide that they no longer want an item of furniture, but it has not stopped being able to provide its original function. So ownership can simply be transferred to a new user. We also have repair, which is similar in some ways, whereby a product reaches its end of use before its expected end of life, and this is because of a fault it has developed. But the product can be repaired and it can continue to be used until its end of life. However, this end of life has not been extended. Lastly, we have refurbishment, and this is different to comprehensive refurbishment in two main ways. Firstly, it takes place before the expected end of life, and secondly, it takes place in a non-factory or non-industrialized setting. So refurbishment may extend the life of the product beyond the originally expected life, but not by a full lifetime. So from looking at this value retention framework, the authors are clear that remanufacturing is what they refer to as the ultimate value retention process. It allows the greatest degree of product life extension, and so retains the value embodied in the product for the longest time. So as I mentioned, at Oakdene Hollins, we have found this to be a very useful framework for communicating the concept of remanufacturing to people who are unfamiliar with it. And we've extended this to distinguish between product value retention processes like remanufacturing and also material value retention processes like recycling. So the value retention framework we feel has been a useful addition to support remanufacturing. Another important narrative that is the theme that runs through these webinars is that of net zero, and it's really important for businesses and policymakers. And as we heard in the presentation yesterday from the remanufacturers of IT equipment, remanufacturing reduces emissions. It diverts materials from disposal that would otherwise go to landfill or recycling. And remanufacturing processes are generally less energy and emissions intensive than manufacturing. You are undertaking operations like cleaning and dismantling rather than casting or moulding. Also, the fact that you are retaining often large volumes of the original material in the product means you are reducing the need for the extraction or recycling of materials and the manufacture of new parts. So all of these factors lead to reductions in CO2 and in energy. However, it can be quite challenging to quantify these benefits, especially in terms of national net zero targets, if you're not considering the emissions embodied in imports. So, for example, remanufacturing a printer cartridge in the UK may actually appear to be a net addition to the UK's carbon accounts if the cartridge was originally manufactured abroad. So remanufacturing does contribute to net zero targets, but you can often only see this when you consider the global picture, and that's something that we're trying to clarify, how you can communicate those benefits most effectively, particularly on a national level. I wanted to finish off the presentation by talking briefly about some of the projects we have been working on recently in remanufacturing. So firstly, the Riemann Path project. So one of the areas identified during the ERN project as a potential gap was that of educational materials for businesses interested in finding out what remanufacturing was and if it could be relevant to them. So out of this came the Riemann Path project, which included a number of the original ERN partners and aimed to develop educational courses and materials, particularly targeted at SMEs who wanted to find out more. So during the project, we ran several workshops with businesses and developed some materials for businesses to use to learn more and explore the paths through which they could develop remanufacturing capabilities. And all of this material can be accessed from the web link shown. Next is a project for a private client who had developed their own circular economy strategy, of which they wanted to include remanufacturing as a pillar. They understood recycling very well, reuse quite well, but remanufacturing was more of an unknown. And they were also approaching this from a material perspective. What is the current impact of remanufacturing on the material of interest and what might happen in the future? So as part of this, we did some comprehensive stakeholder interviews to gain insights on key market trends, barriers and enablers. And this is one of the things I really enjoy about working in this space. It's the opportunity to engage with practitioners and leaders in the field. And it was a really good project, I think, in terms of raising the client's knowledge base about remanufacturing. And as a result, they've actually decided that remanufacturing is something they want to keep an eye on. And so we're currently working with them on developing metrics for monitoring remanufacturing uptake. Lastly is a project we are currently finishing off for Environment and Climate Change Canada. This was a really interesting project, as they not only wanted to look at remanufacturing, but they also wanted to look at the other value retention processes. So this is an example of where the framework I mentioned earlier, we're seeing it already having influence at policymaker level. So they really wanted to understand, what does the current VRP landscape look like in Canada for remanufacturing, for refurbishment, for reuse and repair? What does it look like in terms of the revenues? How many jobs are associated, and what are the environmental impacts in terms of CO2, waste avoidance, particularly plastics? They also were interested in barriers to growth and the potential for the market. And that's sort of the crux of the project, is what should policymakers be doing in Canada to support the industry, and where are the priorities for focusing action? So we're just finishing off this project, and we're really positive and hope this project will help support and direct the policy that will be developed in Canada to help boost remanufacturing going forwards. So to conclude, what's next? Well, while it has been a long journey to get to where we are today, where remanufacturing is starting to become more common, particularly in the language of policymakers, we are hopeful that this is the beginning of a continual growth of the remanufacturing industry. Developments such as Internet of Things, digital twins, autonomous disassembly, they will all help make remanufacturing more efficient and more competitive, while public awareness, the climate emergency and the growth of service-based business models, like the light as a service model from the webinar yesterday, will help increase the demand pull. So we are excited to continue to ride the remanufacturing wave, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That was fascinating. I think you're okay to stay around till the end and take any questions then. And if any of the audience have to leave before the end, feel free to email your questions in and we'll follow up with the speakers. But let's push on to our next speaker, Sarah Ridley, who can hopefully share her screen.
Right, here we go. Let's see if I can.
I wonder, could I ask a question while we're with? Oh, no, I'll wait till the end. You've started.
Sorry, I can wait if you want.
No, I'll wait till you finish.
Okay, Sarah, that's great. We can see and hear you. So
Brilliant, wonderful, thank you. Hello, I'm Sarah Ridley and I work for Autocraft Solutions Group as the project director. And I wanted just to talk to you about our EV, so electric vehicle remanufacturing. But just first, a little bit about Autocraft for those of you who don't know. So we are based in Lincolnshire in Grantham, but we also have a site in Birmingham, West Midlands, and in Wellingborough in Northamptonshire. We are primarily engine remanufacturers, although we do wider things, and some of our customers are there. And EV is something we're growing into. So over the last 40 years or so, we've remanufactured more than a million engines, primarily for vehicles. We had a management buyout in 2010, and we have created, in actual fact, that's out of date because we're now at 150 extra jobs. So we've actually tipping over the balance from being an SME into a bigger company now. And that's partly because all of our things are growing in terms of remanufacture, but we're also adding extra items into our portfolio. 80% of our engines are exported, the majority of them going to the rest of the world now. It's tipped slightly away from the EU because I think remanufacturing in the EU has grown more substantially. We're seeing a lot more going out, particularly towards North America. And also the market has changed. So we're doing far more in aircraft engine remanufacture and also marine engine remanufacture, which is a newer thing for us. So we took over Vertex in the West Midlands in 2016. And they're primarily a tool maker. We found that a really useful synergy for us because so many of remanufacturing activities need very bespoke situations and very bespoke solutions. And so we've been able to use the leverage of all the skilled people there, and they've actually doubled in size. So we've now got nearly 20 people working there now. I say nearly, there's one joining in the end of next week. And then in 2018, they took over the assets of Marla Powertrain, who closed here in the March, April time. And we're actually more than 10 jobs now. I'm sitting actually at that site at the moment, and we're currently at 97 people. So that was from the original 5, so that's done really, really well. And that's growing, and we will soon be at full shift capacity. So we'll be running for 3 shifts for 5 days a week. So we're seeing a big spike in remanufacturing activity, as well as some new activity as well. But I wanted to talk to you specifically about EV. And what's happened with EV for us is that we have found that show after show that we went to, so from Rematech through to some of the Automechanica and some of the other shows that we've been to, we were asked about EV. What's going to happen with EV? Is it able to be remanufactured? Obviously something we wanted to do. We're also contacted by a lot of insurers who've got EV battery packs stacking up, and they literally, some of them have piles of them in a corner and they don't know what to do with them. They're obviously very high voltage and they are potentially dangerous, particularly if they've been damaged in crashes. But also councils are beginning to see fly tipping of batteries in greater and greater amounts, not just automotive batteries, but battery packs of all kinds for anything that's rechargeable. And it is becoming a real big problem. And if you add to that the increase we're seeing in the use of lithium, of cobalt, and copper and some of the other minerals, many of which are coming from countries where it's not sustainable or not ethical in the way they're produced, it's starting to become a real issue. And whilst, funnily enough, batteries count as being able to be recycled under the European End of Vehicle Life regulation, actually what's reused and what's taken back from them isn't the really valuable stuff. It tends to be the carrier materials, but it still counts because it's over the 50%. So we recognised very quickly there was something we could do about that. So when we had a look into it more, we found that the cost for battery of a vehicle are huge, because a battery in an EV car is actually about 40% of the cost, between 30 and 40 depending on the size, and the cells of those take up 70% of that cost. So there's obviously a real opportunity there, because the reality is we're here not only to solve a problem, but to make money too. But because the growth's growing, we're seeing that raw material use is also increasing. And Tesla have already predicted that they will be short of electric battery minerals very, very quickly. Reuters have also said that they think the prices for all of those things are going to go up. And so there's a real reason why we should be remanufacturing them. I was quite glad to follow Rachel's really interesting presentation, because actually I think what we need here isn't just about remanufacturing of them, but a whole circular economy for battery and battery materials, because I think that's really, really important. So you can actually do a state of the health check on a battery, and you can replace weakest cells. A battery pack is made up of individual cells, and individual cells do not age in a linear way. So your battery is only as good as the weakest cell. And what we can do now with technology that we've developed in-house is we can actually identify within a battery pack exactly which cells are the weakest. That means that we're able then to think about whether we can change them out and extend the life of that pack. And that's more along the repair lines of things. We can sort them through and then repurpose cells and also modules at all different levels towards the end of the life, and see what we can do to increase theirs. So if you think that within any one battery pack you can replace between 5 and 30% of the cells, you can actually remanufacture them to a state of health almost to 100% time and time again, because you're only replacing a percentage of the cells at any one time. And that works for quite a long period of time. So if you look at the expected number of electric vehicles, this is all from Arkham University, they think that the amount of batteries for second life applications then will increase. So what we're thinking of is actually having a multiple layer strategy. I think that's really, really important, because they're going to get to a point where they can't be used for a vehicle, but they still have a way of being used for other applications. And so we're trying to find a way to not only repair them, but also reuse them and remanufacture them into other battery packs. So if you look at just the numbers there, we think there'll be 5 million packs in 2030. And actually, in fact, now that the government have brought forward the demise of diesel and petrol cars, and also a lot of hybrid cars, we think that will increase even further from here. So this is our strategy. So we can now recover safely battery packs, including ones that have been damaged in crashes. Oh, I have a malfunction, I beg your pardon. That went a bit quickly. We can then recover them, and we can then discharge them safely. We will then, it's on a timer, I'm really sorry about this. We can then remanufacture them, so we can replace cells. When they get to be no good for the original purpose, we can actually then rebuild them into different packs. I think I'm going to have to leave it here. Grade A packs for new spec, grade B packs for use in vehicles with lower capacity specification. I can't keep up with my slides. I'm really sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen. Grade C packs we reuse in alternative markets. So things like battery packs for hoovers. So if you've got a rechargeable hoover, we can make a battery pack that will recharge in that. And then grade D packs we can recycle. We want to make them safe for recycling partners. And we're actually trying to partner with specialist recyclers in order to make that happen. So we've got a solution to try and avoid the logistics return. So we actually have a mobile EV battery repair centre inside a shipping container. So we can actually put it on a lorry and take it to where the batteries are. That's really important, because actually there isn't legislation currently that covers the safe movement of batteries of those sizes. a lot of battery packs are very big. Even if you think of the Jaguar I-Pace car, that's over a ton just for the battery pack for that one car. That's a big lot of batteries to take, and we have to do it safely. So we can actually take the container to the batteries. We can also put them down and locate them into different places to give global coverage at local level. Either a fixed solution into a dealer's where they've got the sort of wider range of packs to do, or we could actually put it around on a trailer and drive it round between dealerships. So that's something that we have currently capacity to do. And there's a picture of one. Inside each one, we can fully repair the battery packs. That includes all of these things. So a pack safety check. We have a state of health test equipment, which we have patented. We can identify faults and we can plan the repairs. We can discharge and disassemble the packs and replace them and put them back together. And we're actually using our augmented reality technology to do that. This makes it no fault forward because the system will not let you progress unless it sees the things it needs to make it done. We can then charge to confirm the pack is ready for use and then discharge again to make it safe to be put back into the vehicle. And that way we can enable reuse for as long as possible, and then by bringing them back when they're to the end of the reuse, we can then remanufacture them into other packs. We also want to work with our OEMs. We're currently working with 3. We want to design the packs for reman and reuse in mind. What we've found with the ones that come to us at the moment is they're actually quite difficult to disassemble. They've been made to break rather than to be disassembled and reassembled. We want to go through the after sale solution so that we go right the way through from our repair, so replacing individual cells and perhaps modules within that, to recycling at the very end. We won't do the recycling ourselves, but we want to work with partners to do that because we think that there's definitely a way to recover some of the more valuable materials. And I think that particularly as we are moving away from being partnered with the EU, whatever our personal and individual feelings on that one, that's where we're going with Brexit. We need to make sure that we have a solution within this country as well. So from the raw materials, we want to help with the design. We want to help with the assembly of the packs in the first place, through their first life. We then want to be able to be part of the repair and reman solution, to be able to take them to reuse and then hand them over to partners for recycling. We think by doing that, we can actually help create a circular economy for batteries, which we do worry will become a significant problem. I'm sorry about the slide malfunction there. I thought all the animation had been taken off, so please accept my apologies. And that's me done. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. That was fascinating.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, well, I could use my chairman's privilege, and I'll start with a couple of questions.
That's cheating.
before Winnie butts in. Rachel, can I ask you a quick question to start with? You didn't mention upgrade in your framework. Yesterday, we had a speaker from an LED lighting company who was talking about how actually, if they upgraded the LEDs, you know, they saved so much energy, you know, over the lifetime that it wasn't strictly speaking a remanufacture, but it was a sort of refurbishment. Do you consider upgrade in your framework?
Yeah, I think upgrade is a very important element of it. So that was the framework as was originally devised by the UN IRP. So I didn't play around with it, but as a framework, I think it's a really good starting point. And already there are ways to extend it and really get more out of it by including these other elements. So I think the upgrade is really, really important from the lighting example, to avoid people throwing things away far before their end of life, but just at their end of use when they decide, you know, they've reached a point where they're not going to continue with it for whatever reason. So upgrade, I think, is a really important strategy.
Winnie, you were bursting to ask a question.
Yeah. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you again. And you, well, I saw you this morning, Rachel. So, okay. So, Sarah, I just wanted to ask, all right, Sarah, you know, you're now doing from automotive, you're now doing aerospace and marine.
Yep.
I just wondered, you know, about the degree of technology transfer between the 3 sectors.
Yeah, they are very similar. In actual fact, the most of the aeronautical that we do is actually using a diesel engine. So it's all for small planes, and they actually use a diesel engine, which is based on a Daimler one. So it's basically car technology. And whilst the marine is different, it's not substantially different, actually. Very, very similar. So there's a lot of transferred technology.
Okay. Oh, okay. Am I allowed one more question?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted you talked about remanufacturing into other packs.
Yeah.
Did you mean actually remanufacture or repurpose? Are you actually taking them, bring them to as new condition with the same warranty, and then putting them into something else, or are you talking about repurposing?
We're both, in actual fact. So we are repairing them, bringing them back to the original life by remanufacture. So putting them into different packs, sometimes bigger, so they can be used in different vehicle applications and other applications, but also repurposing them. So when they get to a point where we can't do that, we actually repurpose them for use in things like household appliances, drills, rechargeable drills, things like that. All of those things. So both, we want to do all of those because we believe that any battery cell can have multiple lives until it has to be recycled.
Do you have a question, or shall I continue?
If you don't mind, Winnie, I'd like to just ask a quick one. Yeah, just got a quick question again for Sarah on second use of electric vehicle batteries. I spent some year working in smart grid and metering, and there was a lot of interest at the time, without going off at a complete tangent, in the use or the second use of the increasing amounts of electric vehicle batteries that are becoming available for use in grid reinforcement. Now, just a little bit of background, that the main challenge is seen by the energy distribution industry across the country and to another extent across the world is not that you can't generate enough renewable energy, you just can't generate it at the right place at the right time. And what you effectively need in the system is a buffer, somewhere where you can store it, and where, local to where you actually need it, which may be a long way away and at a different time from where it's generated. And the idea of having distributed storage at different levels was very exciting. Is that something which your organization is looking into as far as Second Life?
On a small level, yes. So we're actually at the moment at the experimentation stage. So we're looking to actually do it to store solar energy.
Yes.
So, but at a more domestic level currently, because we've not thought as wide as that. But I've just made a note.
I think we should talk.
Yeah.
I think there's some dots that could be joined up here. Would probably open your eyes a little bit as to what has actually been done. There's an entire warehouse has been used to store energy in Leighton Buzzard, and that's going back about 3 or 4 years now. Off of the LiPo battery. So yeah, let's have a separate chat about that.
That's very exciting.
It really is. If I could ask a second question,
yes, you can.
Back to the first bit, back to Rachel. Hi, Rachel. I enjoyed very much hearing the history of the European Council for Remanufacturing. I did want to ask you about one of the things I'm looking into at the moment, and I'm being challenged on, is how you justify the cost and how you incentivize organizations to take the leap into remanufacturing. And one of the mechanisms which is actually being looked at by one of the organizations I'm speaking to is moving from a product offering to a product as a service offering. I think most of us have heard about the transition at Rolls-Royce Aero Engines from providing engines to providing thrust by the hour. And that means that the responsibility for maintaining the equipment that provides the surface remains with the manufacturer. And that really does seem to gel very well with the whole concept of, well, if you never release ownership of this product and you need to remove it or look after it or do something useful with it at the end of the service, at the end of its service life, that opens up a lot of possibilities to monetize that, to kind of turn your junk into useful components, which will save you money. So it starts to support the business case a lot more. Is that something you've seen get a little bit more traction in your area?
Absolutely. I think that's a really key strategy for help push remanufacturing, and particularly pushing it into some of the sectors where historically there's not been as much activity. So remanufacturing has a long history in automotive and aerospace, but in some of the other sectors, for example, some electronics, it might be that if you are moving more towards the product of a service, then as you say, some of those sort of hurdles and barriers may be overcome. But that said, it is something that they're looking at even in sort of heavy duty equipment, sort of mining equipment, looking at the service elements, because for that industry, unexpected downtime is so costly. And actually, if you can connect your business model to your availability of the equipment, then that's something that's really attractive to the customer. I think product as a service is also going to be very relevant for sort of home appliances and things like that. So some of the sectors where more traditional remanufacturing models may have struggled, but if you look at it through a product as a service business model, it looks much more appealing.
Yeah, can I just step in on the product service system? A key problem with that is actually that if you're going to go through the product service system, then you have to have some element of redesign up front. The way that Rolls-Royce had to do, I mean, it sort of had to be bought out. Then they had to change the design of their combustion engine, which enabled them to go through the power by the hour. So a quick drawback is actually, if you're going to go through and have a product service system, you're going to first look at the design of your product in order to enable that to happen. And I think you also need to look at actually how supportive legislation is, but Rachel will know that because that's why you're in Brussels fighting for us. Right, yeah, yeah. And another, just Rachel, before I forget, you mentioned one of NASA's work. I didn't actually know about it, the category of relevance. Could you possibly give me the reference if you got it handy? I think it's
no problem. I'll send that over.
Oh, thanks very much. That's excellent. For some reason, I hadn't ever heard of it, to be honest. Thanks.
Any more questions from our audience?
Yes. Yes. Sorry, Sarah. Yeah. Can I?
Me first, Winnie.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Sarah. So you're looking at aerospace, marine, and automotive. Are you at all dealing with composites, particularly for aerospace? How are you dealing with the composites involved? Are you at all?
We aren't, no. No, all of ours is, for those sectors, is based around engines. So we've not got composites at all involved in what we're doing.
Yeah, so you just ignore that. Okay.
Well, it's not ignoring it so much as we're not being asked to engage with that at the moment. I presume they have other specialists for that.
Yeah, okay. It's just that it's a key need for aerospace at the moment, and I've been trying to find out people that are engaged in it on a large scale. Yeah,
sorry, not us.
Yeah. No, okay, thanks.
Quick question, Sarah, about the batteries. Now, I was aware of two things. One, that I believe if your electric car fully discharges, the battery's empty, it's a disaster. You know, your Tesla will actually stop moving rather than allow you to discharge it completely. I also appreciate it's a real safety concern. I know the fire have instructions about how to disable the batteries in different cars if they come across a crashed I-Pace or a crashed Tesla. So I'm curious, when you remanufacture the batteries, do you discharge them completely?
Yes, we do. We have to. So one of the first things we do is discharge them completely. It's really important that's safely done, and all of our personnel have had to have a lot of extra training. There's very specialist PPE that they have to wear to make sure that they don't come into contact. They are all fully discharged. We are then able to do the repairs and then test everything. But we do have to charge them back up again. So we have a charging and discharging cycling, but that's all done by robots rather than by people to keep everybody safe. Okay. But one thing that has become clear through our journey through this is that there is not enough legislation. Yeah. And it's all very woolly, and we do need to engage with that, and we really would like to be able to do that, because we think that our concern is if it's done without remanufacturers involved, it won't be practical. Yeah. And it will become very, very costly, and then that will put a stop to what we could do.
Okay. Any other questions? If not,
yeah.
Okay. If not, I think I'll thank both our speakers, because it's been fascinating, actually. far better than the rest of my day. I won't tell you about the rest of my day. Definitely, I'll look back on this as a highlight. So thank you very much
Thanks.
for taking the time and giving us such good, interesting, thought-provoking presentation.
Sorry, just one
Last question.
Sorry. Okay, I am actually representing 2 classes of students, so I was wondering if it's okay to distribute your slides. I thought I should ask before.
Winnie, I'll send you a set that hasn't got all the disruptive animation on.
That's fine. Rachel, would it be okay for you?
That's fine. I can send the slides over.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll end, and of course this recording of this will be available on Thursday.
Excellent.
At the end of the week. So I'll just end with a quick advert. We've got one more seminar workshop tomorrow with Michael Forbes from Renewable Parts and Jamie Stewart from the Centre for Energy Policy. Details on SIR's website under events. So let's thank the speakers.
Thank you.
Again, and I'll end the session then. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
There's a emoji you can use on Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
very much. Bye-bye. Bye.